Do you think it's a mere coincidence that the White House tweeted out that we have Super Trump behind the desk at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? And then that the Charlie Kirk assassin was photographed in Dairy Queen in front of the same poster, Superman, the Man of Steel. And then after the reported assassination, the spokesman for TPUSA quoted the surgeon who supposedly worked on Charlie Kirk, who said that Charlie Kirk was so impressive that he's like the Man of Steel, that even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him, that it was remarkable and miraculous. Is this really all just a coincidence? Well, hold on to your hats, because I got more coming at you. I want to show you a provable truth that you can test yourself. We've got a two-party system, right? It doesn't matter if Republicans get into office and they control the House and the Senate and the judiciary. It doesn't matter if the supreme leaders behind the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue address desk called Resolute. The Republicans and the Democrats will always, and I mean always, ring up the national debt, which devalues the American dollar, which taxes, it's the hidden tax that destroys all of our lives because it takes away the purchasing power of the dollar. And now you got to work harder. So you got to spend more time at work and work harder so you can make the money, more money than it took last year for you to buy the same things this year. Democrats do it, Republicans do it. Secondly, they always enrich the coffers of the military industrial complex and the defense contractors and the prison industrial complex. And they always create more laws, and the more laws you have, the less freedom the rest of us have. And they always do the bidding of their banking masters, whether that's wars or policies, executive orders, favors to special interest groups. Because remember, Washington, D.C., Washington's District of Criminals, is not controlled by the people who claim to be representatives of the people, those 535 politicians that supposedly got elected for your benefit. It's run by the 12,000 lobbyists and special interest groups who pad the pockets of those representatives who do the bidding of those special interest groups and those foreign nations. And we see that in foreign aid and a whole bunch of other places. But I want to show you this. This right here encapsulates and demonstrates the insanity of the political left under Donald Lamone right here and the political right. And until we stop or break this illusion, until we smell the smelling salts of reality and wake up from our delusion, we are never going to change anything. And the way we change it, the solution to this, is to stop participating in the dog and pony show set up by our political, corporate, and banking masters. And that is politics. And I will say this in every single episode if I have to, until you memorize it and it seeps into your head and down into your heart and the soul, the very core of your being. Politics is now, and I'm talking about left or right politics, is now and will always be the clever and deceptive art of using euphemisms, lies, emotionalism, and fear-mongering in order to dupe average people into consenting and even demanding the chains of their own enslavement. Voting as a demoralization ritual that the banking elite wants you to participate in, not because it's going to affect any kind of substantive change, because they've already decided who the rulers are going to be. They've already decided the policies that they're going to hammer out. They've already decided the laws that they're going to enforce on you, but they want you to participate because with your voice, you are calling for evil. So when that president drops that bomb, they do it in your name. When that president or that congressman or that senator makes a move to devalue the currency, they did it with your name and with your approval. And you can say all day long, well, that's not what I voted for. I didn't vote for Pam Bondi to say now we have hate speech and we're going to go after those who exercise that hate speech. You see conservatives all the time going, Pam Bondi needs to be, that's not what I voted for. We need to get rid of her. No, that's exactly what you voted for. And how do we know that? Because history repeats itself. And if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it every single 4 years. You know for a fact that every president, every congressman, every senator is going to do the bidding of, for example, their AIPAC masters not your bidding. And besides that, let's say 90% of Americans wanted a certain politician to write a certain law. What about the other 10% who don't want them to write that law? What about that 10% or 9% or 8% or 50% who just want to be left alone? No, the writing of that law means the implementation and the initiation of force on peaceful people who haven't done anything wrong and just want to be left alone. But the voters who want those politicians to do certain things are like, no, we want you to make that law because we want you to force these people to do this thing. That is what politics is. Left politics, right politics. With that as the backdrop of this video, listen to Donna Lamone's frickin' psychological operation and the boneheaded response of this guy right here. This ignorant, psychopathic, hypocritical response.
What do you think of what happened to him?
You know, sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. I hate to celebrate someone's death, but when you talk about guns rights and you talk about how much the Second Amendment matters to you and then it impacts you, like, what do you expect, you know?
When you talk about gun rights and how much the Second Amendment matters to you, and then that directly impacts you, in other words, you get a bullet and you end up dying, this guy doesn't know what the frick he's talking about. If you take up the cause of and you defend the Second Amendment, you're defending the right of this Yahoo right here to defend himself. You're not defending the right or supporting the right or propagating the right, because they don't have the right, of anybody to pull the trigger and kill somebody who isn't harming somebody, threatening to harm somebody or damage property. This is a ridiculous response. And the fact that Donna Lamone doesn't push back highlights his misunderstanding and his deep ignorance of what's going on here.
Sympathies to his family, but this is why we need gun control.
One of my friends said,
This is why we need gun control. So Charlie Kirk, who, as I understand it, unless I'm completely wrong, who actually said, no, you have the right to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. In other words, nobody's got the right to keep you from keeping and bearing arms. But this guy right here is calling for gun control, which is literally government sanctioned, government funded gun violence against people who want to own guns so they can defend themselves. So he's actually for offensive force, while Charlie Kirk was clearly, as I understand it, unless I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. The hypocrisy in Charlie Kirk is that he said he was pro Second Amendment, but he wanted you to vote for a guy who was clearly anti-Second Amendment, pro red flag law, pro bump stock bans, pro I like take the guns first, due process second, love the Nix instant background check system set up by the non-Second Amendment NRA. Charlie Kirk is saying, hey, I'm for the Second Amendment. I'm for your right to keep and bear arms. I'm for, not for violence. This guy right here is literally for gun violence, if gun violence existed. That's just a euphemism they use to scare you. It's basically tantamount to inanimate object violence. But this guy right here is claiming to be for gun violence because he's for gun control laws. Gun control laws are really people control laws. This guy wants people controlled at the barrel of a government gun. Charlie Kirk wanted the exact opposite. These people are loony.
on social media, he died in a world that he wanted.
Yeah, he said it himself, right? There's a whole quote that's been floating around about like sacrifices were made for the Second Amendment to still exist, or something along those lines, right? It's an ad-lib, but yeah, this is what happens. You reap what you sow, and you know, it's sad that someone died, but also, hey, you know.
What do you say to people who might say that you're unsympathetic and you need to be more human about it?
It's not that he's unsympathetic. It's this guy is a nincompoop. He's a lame brain. He's highly ignorant, does not know what he's talking about. But listen to this hypocrisy right here.
I don't know, reread slavery, rewatch Roots. There are so many different eras of American history and in America where worse things have happened to people. You know, and we've turned a blind eye. You want us to erase the Confederacy, you want us to erase all these different things, but why should I have more sympathy for something that you don't know pain, really. If this is the worst thing you could think of, you don't understand what other people have gone through.
He mentioned slavery and Roots. Do you realize the first people control laws, gun control laws, were anti-slave laws? They didn't want the slaves. They didn't want the blacks to own guns, because if they owned guns, they would have power to resist the authority who is trying to suppress them. If you're pro-gun, you're anti-slavery and pro-black. This black man and this other black man are actually anti-black by saying blacks shouldn't own certain guns. When you're calling for gun control, you're calling for people control, you're calling for black man and black woman control by the government. So you're actually calling for people to be disempowered and to be put in a position where they become victims of the governments who will end up owning all the guns if they take the guns away from the rest of us. That's how convoluted these people are. But I want you to also listen to the rightist statist hypocrisy. But here's the lead up to the hypocrisy from Heavy Duty Country. And Heavy Duty Country, if you're watching, I would love to have an open and honest and good faith dialogue with you. It's worth it. Freedom's worth it. Our country's worth it. The world is worth it. Here's what he says before the J.D. Vance clip.
It's called being intelligent. It's called having a filter. Needed to say, but he was right. Nothing made a better speech about it. J.D. Vance, he could not have made a better speech about this. I got chills while I was watching it. Listen to this.
And before you listen, this is J.D. pro-Palantir, pro-Israeli spying apparatus, pro-techno bros, pro-anti-American Peter Thiel technocracy Vance.
With people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend.
This is all true. This is all true. There's no unity with people who call for and love and rejoice over violence. I agree with that.
There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree.
Now, I agree with all that, but here's the hypocrisy. What is politics? What is he? He's a politician. Politics is a call for the initiation of violence, which set into motion the initiation of policies that violate and execute violence on people who just want to be left alone. And there is no unity with those people. He's one of those people. Charlie Kirk is another one of those people. Everybody who votes is saying, I want my politician to have the power. I want my politician to rob everybody else. I want my politician to set the policies. And if anybody disobeys my politician, force should come against them because rule of law. Don Lemon believes this. That black guy who was just interviewed by Don Lemon believes this. J.D. Vance believes this. Charlie Kirk believes this. Every Democrat, every Republican believes this. They want their politician to win. They want their politician robbing and ruling everybody else. Thus, politicians promote politics and government, which grants a few people the right to rule the many and requires that the many be obligated to submit to the rulership or be punished. That is violence. And J.D. Palantir Vance is right. There is no unity with those people, no true unity. How can you unite with somebody who wants violence and robbery and theft and extortion and coercion to come upon you and your family? But here's the coup de grace in what J.D. Vance says that gave Heavy Duty Country chills.
I got chills while I was watching it.
Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment?
Really? Then why don't you do something about it, JD? You have the power, don't you? I mean, the Republicans own the White House. They own the House. They own the Senate. They own the judiciary. But you who have the power are claiming that George Soros is funded by your government. and you're complaining that they continue to benefit from your government that you're in control of. What the hell's going on here?
They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in...
These guys are liars. I thought the people voted you in power. If you have power and you recognize a problem and you don't do anything about it, that is, the George Soros funded organizations are benefiting from subsidies, why aren't you removing those subsidies, you who are in power? Either A, you don't have the power to remove those subsidies, which why are we voting if we can't transfer power by the will of the people? Or number two, you're continuing to let the people you're complaining about that you say are our enemies, you're continuing to let them be subsidized with American tax cattle dollars because you included yourself in that equation, but you're not in that equation. So to sum this up, JD Vance says there is no unity with people who want violence on the rest of us. I agree. Both parties want violence against the rest of us. And number two, JD Vance says there are certain people who are benefiting from American tax cattle dollars and he's appalled about it, but he has power to do something about it, but he doesn't do anything about it. And Trump doesn't either. So that either means they're for Soros or they're incapable and have no power to do anything about it. But this speech gave heavy duty country chills.
I got chills while I was watching it.
Condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable.
You're right. There is no unity.
Politics is violence. You can no more call for the eradication of political violence as you can the eradication of wet water or hot fire. The heat and the fire are one. The moisture and the water are one. The violence and the politics are one. They are inseparable. They're one and the same. And this hypocrisy and inconsistency and deep ignorance and dire evil gave heavy-duty country chills.
I got chills while I was watching it.
We are in the midst of deep psychological deception, and social media influencers like this are leading masses of people off the cliff. If you agree or disagree, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you want to support this channel, you can do it for free by liking and share this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon. Remember, the price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression. I got a novel idea. Let's stop securing our own oppression and let's start today. I'll see you in the next video.